My daughter-in-law looked me in the eye at Christmas dinner and said, "Harold, we've been talking, and we think it's time you sold the lake house. You're too old to maintain it alone. We'll handle the sale for you." She smiled like she was doing me a favor. My son nodded along like a man who had already been convinced before the conversation started. 12 people at that table. Not one of them knew that the lake house had been sold 3 weeks earlier by me, quietly, on my own terms, and that every dollar was already somewhere she would never find it. I put down my fork, looked at her calmly, and said, "Which lake house?" And then I watched her entire world begin to collapse. Not because of what I said, because of what I had already done and what I was about to do next. My name is Harold, and I am 65 years old. I drove a delivery truck for 31 years. My late wife and I saved every dollar we could and put it into one dream, a small lake house 2 hours north of the city. We bought it 30 years ago for almost nothing. We fixed it up ourselves, weekend by weekend, board by board. Every summer for 20 years, we took our son Michael there. It was the place my wife loved most in the world. When she passed, I kept it, not because it made financial sense. Because I could still feel her there, in the kitchen, in the garden, on the dock at sunset. Michael is a good son. But 3 years ago he married Vanessa, and Vanessa had a plan from the very beginning. I could see it the first time she visited the lake house. She walked through every room with measuring eyes, asking careful questions. What would something like this sell for? Was it hard to manage at my age? Each question wrapped in concern, none of them innocent. Over the following 2 years, she worked on Michael slowly, patiently, feeding him worries dressed as love, until he began repeating her words in his own voice. "Dad, have you thought about simplifying your life?" Simplifying, her word. I had heard her use it first. What Vanessa did not know was that I had been watching just as carefully as she had. And what I had seen went far beyond a woman who wanted a lake house. 6 months before that Christmas dinner, my neighbor called me. He had seen a car parked outside my lake house on 2 separate weekends when I was not there. Different car each time. He had written down the plates. When I ran those plates through a contact I had from 30 years of knowing people in this city, one of them came back registered to a real estate agent. The same real estate agent, I discovered. That Vanessa had been quietly consulting for months, getting valuations, discussing listing timelines, planning a sale of a property she did not own and had no right to sell. She had been treating my lake house like it was already hers. While I was still alive, I called my lawyer the next morning, not to complain, to act. We reviewed everything: the property title, my will, my accounts, and something else my lawyer uncovered during his research. Vanessa had, 7 months earlier, applied for a credit line using my lake house address as a listed asset in her household financial profile. She had not forged anything, not yet, but she had misrepresented her connection to the property in a way that raised serious legal questions. My lawyer contacted the credit institution immediately and put them on notice. Then we did something else. We sold the lake house cleanly, legally, to a young family who had been looking for exactly that kind of property. The closing happened 3 weeks before Christmas. Every dollar moved exactly where I directed it, protected, organized, and completely beyond Vanessa's reach. And then I went to Christmas dinner. She had chosen Christmas deliberately. The whole family gathered, the room warm and full. Everyone relaxed, the perfect moment to make her move in front of witnesses. She waited until the main course, turned to me with her practiced smile, and said the words she had been preparing for months. "Harold, we've been talking, and we think it's time you sold the lake house. You're too old to maintain it alone. We'll handle the sale for you." I put down my fork. "Which lake house?" She blinked. "What do you mean, your lake house?" "The one up north." I nodded slowly. "Oh, that one. I sold it 3 weeks ago." The room went silent. Something crossed her face that she could not control, not surprise, not hurt, but loss. The loss of something she had already decided was hers. But I was not finished. The following Monday morning, my lawyer submitted a formal complaint to the State Financial Regulatory Board regarding the misrepresentation of my property in Vanessa's credit application. It was not a criminal charge, but it was a serious professional and financial matter that would follow her record. At the same time, I provided the real estate agent's contact details and the neighbor's documented plate records to my lawyer, who sent a formal cease and desist letter making clear that any further unauthorized activity related to my former property or my remaining assets would result in immediate legal action. By Tuesday, Michael called me. Not about the lake house. About a conversation he had found on Vanessa's phone messages between her and the real estate agent going back 8 months, discussing timelines, commissions, and how to handle the old man. He had found them because, for the first time, he had actually looked. He sat in my kitchen for 3 hours that evening. I did not say a single word against Vanessa. I did not need to. Her own messages said everything that needed to be said. Michael filed for divorce 2 months later. The credit misrepresentation matter resulted in a formal warning on Vanessa's financial record that affected her own credit applications for years to come. The real estate agent quietly dropped her as a client the moment the cease and desist arrived. I did not hate Vanessa. I want to be clear about that. I understood exactly what she was, a person who looked at an old man and saw an opportunity instead of a human being. What I did was simply refuse to be that opportunity. I moved faster than she did, documented more carefully than she did, and used the law exactly as it exists to be used. By the time she made her move at Christmas dinner, I had already made mine 3 weeks earlier. She walked into that room thinking she was about to win. She was already gone. Never let anyone convince you that being old means being slow. I had 30 years of early mornings and long routes and learning to think 3 stops ahead. Vanessa thought she was playing chess against a man who had forgotten the rules. She had no idea she was sitting across from someone who had been watching her moves since the very first visit and had already taken the board.